Meri has Mariah. Mariah is just the happiest baby I've ever seen.
I completely assumed that after I had Mariah, it would be very easy for me to conceive again. And I was late again and decided to take another pregnancy test, and it was positive again. We went in and they couldn't hear the heartbeat. It was just taken away from us, and I didn't understand that, and it was really hard. It's 4 years ago this month.
4 years ago. It's 4 years. Wow.
Hey everyone, it's Katie from Without a Crystal Ball. Welcome back to my channel. It's Tuesday, May 9th, 2023, and I hope you're having a wonderful day. All right, yesterday I uploaded a video and we talked a little bit about Robin Brown and the marriage between Robin and Kody, what the nanny does, allegedly, and just some backstory about the Brown family before they actually had the television show, before they moved to Utah, some of the ins and outs between some of the relationships. And I have a source that is a friend of the Brown family that's known them since the 1990s and has a lot of backstory, a lot of knowledge about this family and a lot of the struggles they've gone through, along with some of the lies or the deceptions that are on TV. So yesterday we talked a little bit about the deceptions with Kody's relationship with Robin and his obsession with Robin. And I want to just sort of go back in time now to Meri and Kody Brown, because the source was sharing some backstory about their relationship and their marriage that I think some of you might scratch your head about, because one of the big storylines for Sister Wives has been Meri Brown's struggle with infertility. And obviously, for many women and men and couples, infertility is a really difficult struggle. So many people want to be parents. So many people can't. It's something you can't always control. So Meri Brown's infertility with Kody has been a topic of conversation on the show since the very first episode. She talks about the fact that she only had one child. She wanted to have more than one child, but that she just wasn't able to get pregnant and only had ever been pregnant twice. So the person that has been speaking to me, again, is verified and certainly just doesn't want to go public at this time due to things that are going on in their personal life, basically was providing me a backstory about really the very beginning stages of that infertility struggle and some of the ideas that Kody and Meri were doing to try to have babies. But it wasn't because they were doing it because they wanted to. It was basically they were being given really bad advice from their church, and it's kind of shocking, and it's a little bit, I don't even know, it's like disturbing when you start to think about in the context of this potentially being done by someone at your church to you. So it has to do with a procedure that is legitimately not verified to really do much of anything to help you, but it's big in the world of naturopathy and such, and it comes down to something called colonics. So let's dive into this topic. Before we do, can you please do me a big favor and give this video a thumbs up? Also, please subscribe to my channel if you've not yet subscribed by clicking on the subscribe button down below. If you could click on the bell so you never miss a video and know exactly when I go live and you get notified of that. If you have something to say, please say it and be nice and share this video with your friends. Okay. So again, this information is coming from a source and it has to do with their direct conversations with Kody, Meri, and the family about their struggles with infertility and a practice that had been going on in the Apostolic United Brethren that is deeply troubling for a lot of the people there, and that is something that the Browns had told her allegedly that they were using for fertility. So Kody and Meri apparently got married. The way that they described it is that Kody and Meri got married and they were both very, very, very inexperienced. They were Kody had maybe kissed girls before on the lips. I mean, he mentions that in his book, Becoming Sister Wives, but Meri had like never kissed anyone until she actually got engaged and then they were married. The first moment of intimacy that they had was after they were husband and wife, and she was Kody's legal wife. So when she got married in 1990, they were married for, I think, a little more than a year or two before they brought Janelle into the picture. During that time when they didn't have Janelle in the picture, they had been trying to get pregnant but were struggling. And apparently, this is what the person said. So apparently Kody had been very distraught, and he said that he and Meri had been trying really hard to get pregnant, but for whatever reason, it just was not working out. And he had confided in these people that one of the steps that they were taking in order to try to get pregnant were doing colonics with the church. And the colonics were these cleanses of the colon that the church was pushing through one of their brethren named Joseph Thompson, who, by the way, wasn't a doctor, wasn't a certified professional, wasn't really didn't have any reason to do these for people, but was telling people that these cleanses were going to help them with their gut health and could help them for a variety of reasons from anything. I mean, they were pushing it as the cure for everything. And so for whatever reason, Kody and Meri decided that they were going to try these for their fertility. Now, a variety of people in the church have described these to me, and they have gone through them personally, having described them as very uncomfortable, very painful, lasting several hours, and that some of the people believe that the guy that was doing these was doing other things to people while he was doing these. And there's been allegations that he did things to people. And it was one of the reasons that Joseph Thompson ended up, I don't know, getting called out by the church, and he eventually had to leave. It was that, along with some allegations that he was doing things to his daughters. But so he was doing these colon cleanses. He was also running the endowments for marriage. And on top of that, he's doing things allegedly to his daughters. And a lot of people in the church were going to Joe, apparently, for these colon cleanses. And I guess he was like putting tubes up and push up water, and then water comes out a different tube. And no matter what you want to say here, it's not going to help your fertility. I was just going to give you some backstory about what these colon cleanses are. What they do is they put you in a position, they insert a nozzle, and then it has a disposable plastic hose that's connected to it. It pushes water up, and the water is then released back into the tube. It puts about it uses about 16 gallons of water. And then when the water that goes up and then comes back down, the contents can be observed to see if there's any issues going on there. So basically what they're doing is they're trying to remove all the bacteria and all the crap out of your colon. And they claim that that this bacteria that's inside it, so these people that are doing it to people claim that that bacteria makes you constipated, it blocks you from being able to absorb nutrients, it colonizes into bacteria and yeast, and it can put toxins to your bloodstreams. But there's no scientific evidence to back up any of these health claims. So I found all of that on verywell.com and verywellhealth.com, and it is using it's a large amounts of water to flush waste out of the colon, the largest part of the large intestine, and it's called a colonic irrigation. Mind you, now that you know what one is, there's a guy at the church basically doing these for some of the people, allegedly. And this is something that a lot of people are being touted and told, this is going to cure everything. Now, what kind of made people a little bit confused here was that when Kody was saying this, they didn't understand why he would think that a colon cleanse would help Meri get pregnant, and why he would also allegedly be doing these for himself. So they were apparently doing these colon cleanses, believing that this was going to help with their fertility. And this was actually before Janelle entered the family. And so when Janelle came in, she had actually been married before, so she was not inexperienced per se intimately, the way that Kody and Meri would have been inexperienced when they first got married. And she actually got pregnant very quickly. And Christine also got pregnant very quickly, and then Meri got pregnant. So Meri didn't get pregnant until Kody brought in a wife into the situation that kind of knew what she was doing. And once he knew what he needed to do, apparently Meri got pregnant. Now, that doesn't change the fact that for years after that, she struggled with fertility. But the way that they made it seem was that Kody was very inexperienced and didn't really know what he was doing. And Meri, because of that, didn't really enjoy things as well. And really, they struggled with that because of their inexperience and Kody's lack of knowledge. And then they were being directed, allegedly, by these people at church to do these really ridiculous things like colon cleanses for fertility. And so I'm trying to put myself like in Meri's shoes, being desperate for wanting to have a child. Your husband apparently doesn't really know what he's doing. Then he gets married to another wife who knows what she's doing, and she gets pregnant. Then he figures out what he needs to do and gets the other wives pregnant and you pregnant, but then she still struggles with infertility afterwards. So I don't know what happened after that. I don't know if it was that they were struggling emotionally. And so, one of the things is that when you're in these relationships, if you don't do it on the exact right day and the exact right time, you can't get pregnant. Meri did go through fertility treatments later that were more with a doctor, but for years they tried to figure this out on their own. So because of the way that the AUB works, they don't actually, their church, the Apostolic United Brethren, they don't really believe in medical doctors. They believe in naturopathy. They believe that the doctors are part of the mark of the beast, and that if you go to the hospital, the government can get a hold of you and put their microchip in you. And there's so many different reasons, but they believe that you should just stay away from anything of this world, and that you can fix everything without going to the doctor. So they generally, a lot of them don't have health insurance or proper health insurance. They don't generally, if they're pregnant, get proper prenatal care. So they might not even go to a doctor. Instead, they might use a midwife. And that midwife may or may not even be licensed. It could just be someone within their group that claims to be a midwife. They don't get the best prenatal care, and then they don't have the best knowledge, or they're not going to the right people always, and they don't have the right insurance. Another thing was that Kody and Meri didn't really have a lot of money when all of this was going on. And so it's likely that she also didn't have proper insurance that maybe would have helped if she would have gone to a doctor. She also gave birth to her only child at home. Now, the home births are partially because they can't afford insurance, or they don't believe in having insurance because the government, and they don't want the government to know who they are, and they want to be off the grid, and they're sovereign citizens and the mark of the beast, all of that, allegedly. And then there's they don't want the government to know that dad has all these babies with different moms. And then they don't want to potentially have the wife be at the hospital and maybe say something that could get the dad in trouble, expose them to the fact that she's being abused or the kids are being abused, whatever. It's just a way to control the women and keep them away from anyone that could potentially help them. But then they also paranoid the women into believing that they can't go to the doctor. Now, a lot of the women go to the doctors and start to see doctors and get proper prenatal care today. But back then they did not. And Meri, along with Christine, had all but one at home. Janelle had a mix of both. And Meri's birth was at home, and Robin has only ever had home births. So Meri didn't always have the best prenatal care. She didn't have the best OBG. She didn't even probably have an OBGYN. And so for some of the best peak years of her fertility, she was likely taking really bad advice and not getting proper testing to even determine what was going on, and probably didn't have the right information to help them figure out how to even get pregnant. Not to say that people can struggle with infertility without even having a reason. Everything can look perfect, and they can have just spontaneous infertility. And that happens, and not everyone can easily get pregnant. And Kody and Meri were always very cagey about their relationship. 2 seasons ago, she said that Kody and her had not been intimate for more than 10 years. And so by the time they were pretending that they were going to get pregnant via IVF, they weren't even having intimate relationships. So they weren't even being intimate before the show started, according to the way that she explained it, because the interview she did, I believe, was in 2019. And so she's like, oh, it's been at least a decade, I think, or 2020. It's been at least a decade, which would have put it at 2010, 2009. And then they're trying to do this IVF stuff, and they're at the doctor saying that they're doing it and they do it enough and it's fine and their sex life is great. When the truth was they weren't sleeping together anymore and they weren't really trying to have babies at all either. Like the whole IVF thing was like a storyline for the show, apparently, if you put the math together. I mean, obviously for IVF, the two of them don't have to do it together, but it's again, just like, why would you want to have a baby with a guy that you're not even being intimate with? It's just a fake storyline. Anyways, in my opinion. But poor Meri, I just kept thinking about how sad it was that had she been in the real world, had she had a proper education away from the cult, had she been surrounded by other people that weren't so indoctrinated and fearful of outsiders and made to believe that medicine was wrong, had she started sooner and maybe gotten proper health care and health insurance for her reproductive health, maybe things would have been different for her. Maybe she would have been able to have more kids, because it sounds like the steps that they were taking in the early days were not steps that would have actually helped them get pregnant. And then you start to think about all the other reasons why this church would tell people that they should get a colonic, and what kind of creep is telling people to have these colonics. Like, what is he getting out of this by telling people to come to his office when he's not licensed to do this? He's not a doctor. What kind of church is doing this? Why would they be doing your health care? Why would your church be like, yeah, come to my office for colonics? Weird, right? Or why would your church be telling you who you can get married to and dictating who your husbands are? Because that happens too. It's just a strange phenomenon. And I think of all the women that have probably struggled through infertility like Meri, unneeded infertility. Had they had the proper health care, they might have been able to get proper resources to have the babies that they wanted. Instead, they're just suffering in silence, doing these treatments that are painful and uncomfortable, and Kody not knowing what to do or where to put it, maybe. The more I learn about their backstory, the sadder I feel for the women, and the less I care for Kody. And the worse I feel about this church and the leaders of this church and the harm they've done to the people, and just this trickle-down effect of how it just, they get indoctrinated, they believe all this bull crap, and then they just follow these men blindly, believing that they're the brethren and they speak for God. And then it just creates this cycle that you see where you learn that Meri was allegedly doing colonics because that's what Kody and the church thought would work for her. So again, this is alleged. Take this for what it's worth. Her documented infertility has been very well spoken about on the show. And she did say that they took steps, natural steps in the very beginning, and this could be just one of those steps. Tell me what your thoughts are in the comments below. Bye, guys.